Hi everyone, Peter Groth here with dyslexiaconnect.com, and this is our online dyslexia video blog. Today I'm going to be talking about the issue of what dyslexia is. We often get this question from parents who send us emails off of our website, parents I run into who think their children may have dyslexia, and they're not really sure what dyslexia is, and they have questions about, the nature of it, what are the signs of it, and so forth. So I'm going to be talking today a little bit about the definition, what dyslexia is. Most experts agree that dyslexia is a neurological condition that is inherited, and this condition makes it difficult for individuals to learn how to read, write, and spell in their native language, despite the fact that they are of average or above average intelligence. So this is a definition that's generally agreed upon. Since dyslexia is inherited, we often see cases where there are multiple dyslexic individuals in a family or an extended family. A lot of students who end up in our online tutoring program, we will sometimes ask the parents if they've ever had difficulties with reading, spelling, or writing, or if they have a family member who's ever had difficulty with those issues. And I'd say probably 9 out of 10 times they may say something like, well, my brother, he had a lot of difficulty with spelling and reading, and he was a very late reader when he was growing up, or maybe he still has troubles, or they have a sister, or perhaps they themselves have had difficulties for many years, and they suddenly notice that their child is having those same issues. And so since dyslexia is inherited, that is something that we see very often. Usually if there's a dyslexic individual in the family, there typically are others, either in the immediate family or in the extended family. Dyslexia occurs in varying degrees. So what this means is that there isn't just one standard dyslexia that everyone has. It comes in many different degrees. There's very mild dyslexia, which may only show certain aspects of dyslexia, very, very minor ones. And there's also very, very severe dyslexia, which we see sometimes, which may result in a child being almost illiterate until they get special help for that. So there are a lot of different degrees, so it's hard to just simply say, well, this is dyslexia, here are all the exact symptoms, and that's what it is. Even though individuals with dyslexia tend to have a lot of the same symptoms, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those symptoms more in the future. Since dyslexia is inherited, it's not something that can just be cured outright. That's another question we get a lot, is whether dyslexia can be cured, whether there's something that can be done and, say 6 months go by and it's suddenly gone. Unfortunately, since it's a neurological condition and is inherited, it's not something that just simply disappears. An individual with dyslexia is going to have dyslexia their entire life. However, if a dyslexic receives the proper training and proper help and intervention, they are definitely able to make a tremendous amount of progress and to deal with dyslexia and to learn how to read and to spell and to write. So it doesn't mean, it's not sort of a sentence that means they're not going to be able to read well, not going to be able to write, or anything like that. So, when you're talking about the definition of dyslexia, it's also very important to talk about what dyslexia is not. Probably the first one, I would say, is dyslexia is not laziness or lack of motivation. And unfortunately, dyslexics often get labeled as being lazy or unmotivated simply because they have so many issues and the people that they're dealing with don't necessarily have another explanation for it. So they might say, well, if you worked harder, you'd be able to overcome this. The issue is you're just not putting in the time. You're just lazy. If you weren't lazy, you would be able to cope with this and be able to make progress. And that, in fact, is not the case at all. Since dyslexia is an inherited condition, it doesn't have anything to do with a lack of motivation on the part of the dyslexic. In fact, I've worked with many dyslexics that are highly, highly motivated, and the difficulties they have are simply due to their dyslexia, not a lack of motivation. Dyslexia also is not a result of sensory impairment. Sometimes people think it's a result of physically not seeing things properly. Or perhaps if a child had some difficulty with vision or hearing when they were younger, they think, well, it's just, these difficulties are simply the result of that, And if it's actually dyslexia, that's not the case. It's not simply the result of physical impairment. Sometimes dyslexia can go along with these things, correspond to that. Once in a while we'll see children who have dyslexia who also had hearing difficulties when they were younger, and that might have affected the way that they started to acquire language, certainly. But dyslexia is not simply a physical impairment. Since it is neurological in its basis, it's not the result of a child not being able to see well or not hearing properly or anything like that. Dyslexia is also not a lack of the result of a lack of instruction. Sometimes people think, well, clearly, this person just needs a little bit more teaching. If we give them more of the same type of instruction, they're going to get over this and they're going to improve. And unfortunately, this is not the case. And as a result of this, children who have dyslexia, if they're put into special programs in school that simply give them more of the same type of instruction that they've been receiving otherwise in the school, they're not necessarily going to progress, because it's not simply a matter of giving them more of the same type of approach that they've been getting up to that point. What they specifically need is a phonics-based approach that's going to give them a very stratified or sort of a constructive method that will give them all the basis they need to be able to make progress and to build that foundation that they need. That's what's really important. So it can't be simply cured, or it's not the result of a lack of instruction, and it can't be cured simply with more instruction. It has to be a very specific, correct type of instruction to address the dyslexia. So that's a definition of dyslexia, and some of the things that we often see when we're talking about dyslexia. And that's a helpful definition. If you know that, it's going to make it easier to recognize dyslexia when you see it. And in a future video, I'll be talking a little bit about the symptoms of dyslexia that we often see. If you have any questions, feel free to leave something in the comment section here on this video, or you can also visit our blog and our website at www.dyslexiaconnect.com. There's a contact form on there. You can feel free to shoot us an email if you like. And thanks for checking us out, and I will see you in a future video. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.